Samantha stood by her apartment window, gazing at the city as it slowly came to life under the soft glow of the morning sun. The scent of freshly brewed coffee filled the air, a small comfort amidst the lingering remnants of her past. It had been a year since her divorce from Tom, and while the pain of those first few months had dulled, the memories continued to echo within her. She had spent the last year focusing on rebuilding her life, pouring herself into her work as a freelance graphic designer. But as fulfilling as her career was, there was a hole in her heart. The companionship she once shared with Tom had been replaced with the solitude of a single life. She often found herself reminiscing about the moments they had shared, the laughter, the adventures, and even the quiet evenings together. They had been partners in crime, two souls, bound by mutual love and understanding. But over time, life had pulled them in different directions, and they had drifted apart. In many ways, Samantha had grown stronger. She had learned to prioritize herself, rediscovered her passions, and even made new friends. But deep down, there was still a flicker of longing for the love she had lost. One afternoon, as she mindlessly scrolled through her phone, a message popped up from a mutual friend, Jenna. The words were simple, but they sent a shock through her body. "Hey, Sam, Tom is back in town. He wants to catch up. Are you open to it?" Samantha's heart skipped a beat. She hadn't heard from Tom in months, and the thought of meeting him again stirred up a whirlwind of emotions within her. Their separation had been mutual and amicable, but the past had a way of coming back with an intensity that was impossible to ignore. She stared at the screen for a moment, her mind racing with questions. Would seeing him again stir up old feelings? Could she even face him after all this time, despite the uncertainty? Part of her was curious about how he had been, how he had changed, and most of all, how their reunion would feel. After a few moments of contemplation, she typed back, "I'm open to it. Let's see how it goes." The days leading up to their meeting were filled with anticipation, but also a sense of dread. Samantha found herself revisiting memories, not just the good ones, but the ones that had led to their separation. She tried to remind herself of how far she had come since that time, how much she had grown. Still, a part of her wondered if Tom had also changed, and if so, how much. On the day of their meeting, Samantha chose her outfit with care, trying to strike the balance between casual and put together. As she arrived at the cafe where they had agreed to meet, her heart pounded in her chest. The memories of their time together flooded her mind, making her wonder if she was truly ready to see him again. When she entered the cafe, she saw Tom sitting at a corner table, his warm smile unmistakable. He had changed in some ways. His hair was a bit longer, and there was a sense of ease in his demeanor that hadn't been there before. But there was something familiar about him, something comforting. As she walked toward him, he stood up and greeted her with a hug, his arms enveloping her with a warmth that she hadn't realized she missed. "Wow, it's been a while," Tom said, his voice rich with sincerity. Samantha smiled, feeling a rush of emotions that she hadn't expected. "It really has," she replied, sitting down across from him. The initial moments were filled with the usual pleasantries, catching up on work, mutual friends, and travel stories. It felt easy, like no time had passed at all. But as the conversation deepened, Samantha began to sense a shift. Tom's gaze lingered on her in a way that she hadn't expected, and she found herself wondering if he was feeling the same pull of emotions that she was. There was an unspoken tension in the air, and it made Samantha uncomfortable. She wasn't sure if she was ready for what this meeting would bring. After a while, Tom shifted in his seat, his face growing more serious. "I've been thinking a lot since our divorce," he began, his voice steady but tinged with vulnerability. I realize now that I didn't fully appreciate what we had. I took you for granted. Samantha felt her heart skip a beat. Her mind raced with thoughts of their past, of the choices they had both made that led them here. What do you mean? She asked. Her curiosity piqued. Tom's eyes dropped to his coffee cup, and he sighed deeply. I was so focused on my career, and I didn't prioritize our relationship. I miss the connection we had. Samantha felt a flood of conflicting emotions wash over her. Part of her wanted to defend the reasons for their separation, to remind him that it wasn't just one person's fault. But at the same time, she couldn't help but feel a longing for the connection they had once shared. The bond they had seemed so effortless back then, and now it felt like a distant memory. I understand, she said softly. We both made choices that led us here. I needed to focus on myself too. Tom nodded, looking up at her with a sincerity that made her heart ache. I've been working on myself, trying to be more present, trying to be a better person. I just want you to know that I regret how things ended. Samantha took a deep breath, feeling a mixture of nostalgia and uncertainty. She appreciated Tom's honesty, but she knew that rekindling their relationship would not be as simple as picking up where they left off. The road ahead was uncertain, and she didn't want to walk down it blindly. Over the following weeks, Samantha and Tom began to reconnect. They kept their meetings casual, meeting for coffee or grabbing lunch. But there was an underlying tension that neither of them could ignore. For Samantha, the experience was bittersweet. There were moments when she could see glimpses of the man she had once loved. Kind, thoughtful, and genuinely invested in their conversations. But there were also moments when the old doubts crept in. Was this really a friendship? Or was it the beginning of something more? One evening, as they watched a movie at her apartment, Tom turned to her with a soft expression. I really enjoy spending time with you. Sam, it feels good to have you back in my life, he said, his voice sincere. Samantha's heart fluttered at his words. She hadn't realized how much she had missed him, how much she had yearned for the comfort of his presence. But there was also a voice in her head, warning her to be cautious. The past had not been kind to their relationship, and she couldn't just ignore the history between them. I feel the same way, she replied, her voice soft but firm. But we need to be careful. We can't pretend like everything is the same. Our past is complicated. Tom nodded, understanding the weight of her words. I get it, he said, his expression somber. But I also don't want to lose what we have. I've realized that I still care about you, Sam, and I don't want to let go of that connection. Samantha looked at him, unsure of how to respond. She wasn't ready to open her heart to him again, but at the same time, she didn't want to shut him out completely. She had to admit that there was still something between them. Something that wasn't easily forgotten. As their friendship continued to grow, so did the complexity of their emotions. One evening, they attended a party together, and Samantha noticed something that made her stomach churn. Tom was laughing and joking with a woman named Claire, and the way they interacted made Samantha feel uneasy. The pang of jealousy caught her off guard, and she quickly turned away, not wanting to show how affected she was. Jenna, who had joined her at the bar, noticed Samantha's discomfort. What's going on, Sam? She asked, her voice filled with concern. I don't know, Samantha replied, her voice tinged with insecurity. I guess I didn't expect him to be so comfortable with someone else. Jenna raised an eyebrow. Do you still have feelings for him? Samantha sighed deeply, the weight of the question sinking in. I thought I was over him, but seeing him with her, it's making me question everything. The next day, Samantha couldn't shake the feeling of unease that had settled over her. She called Tom and asked to meet, wanting to confront her feelings head-on. When they sat down, Samantha didn't waste any time. I need to talk about last night, she said, her voice shaky but resolute. Seeing you with Claire, it stirred up feelings I thought I had moved past. Tom looked surprised, but his expression softened. I didn't realize you felt that way, he said gently. I'm just trying to figure things out myself. I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable. Samantha looked at him, searching his eyes for an understanding. I know you're trying. Tom, but I think we need to be honest with each other about what we want. We can't keep dancing around this. As the weeks passed, Samantha and Tom continued to meet regularly, their friendship slowly evolving into something more intimate, yet uncertain. Despite their shared history, they found themselves navigating unfamiliar territory. Samantha had spent so much time learning to be independent, to stand on her own after their divorce, that allowing herself to rely on Tom again felt like stepping into a new world. The question of whether they could simply be friends, or if something more was slowly creeping between them, lingered like an unspoken truth. Their conversations grew deeper as they ventured into personal territory. They began sharing their thoughts on the future. And slowly but surely, Tom started to reveal a side of himself Samantha hadn't seen before. He spoke about his regrets, not just about their relationship, but also about the things he had neglected in his life. I know I messed up before, he confessed one evening, his voice steady but tinged with vulnerability. But I've learned so much from my mistakes. I wanted to be the person you deserve. Samantha couldn't help but feel a wave of sympathy for him, but also caution. She had been the one to suffer the most when they had fallen apart. And even though Tom's words were sincere, she wasn't sure if he could truly change. She had given so much of herself in the past, only to watch it unravel. She had to protect her heart now, especially after everything that had happened. One evening, Tom suggested they take a short trip to the mountains. I think we both need a break, he said. We can clear our heads, get some fresh air, and just be ourselves for a few days. Samantha hesitated at first, but after much contemplation, she agreed. The trip was meant to be a getaway, a time for them to figure out where they stood without the noise of the city distracting them. The trip turned out to be more revealing than either of them expected. The crisp mountain air and the quiet serenity of nature brought an unexpected calm to their relationship. They hiked together through lush trails, shared meals around a campfire, and stayed up late, talking under the stars. Each moment felt like a step closer to understanding each other, and for the first time in a long time, Samantha felt at peace with the idea of being around Tom again. One night, as they sat by the fire, the stars above casting a gentle glow over them, Tom looked at Samantha with earnest eyes. Sam, I've realized something during this trip, he began. I don't just want to be friends with you anymore. I care about you deeply, and I think we owe it to ourselves to see where this could go. His voice was steady, but there was a vulnerability in it that made Samantha's heart race. Samantha felt a rush of emotions flooding her. Joy, fear, confusion. She had spent so much time protecting herself, guarding her heart from the pain of their past. But in that moment, she knew that things had changed. She cared about him too, but she needed time to process everything. Tom, I care about you too, but we've both been through a lot. I don't want to rush into anything. We need to be sure we're both ready for this, she said, searching his face for reassurance. Tom nodded, his expression softening. I understand. I'm not asking you to make any decisions right now. I just wanted to be honest with you about how I feel. I think we're in a different place now, and I don't want to let this chance slip away. He reached out and took her hand, his grip gentle but firm. Samantha took a deep breath, letting the stillness of the mountains settle around her. I think we can take this slow. I want to explore this with you, but we need to build trust, and we need to be patient with each other. As they sat by the fire, the warmth of the flames matched the warmth growing in Samantha's heart. It wasn't a sudden rush of love, but rather a steady understanding between them that something new was starting to take shape. She wasn't sure where it would go, but for the first time in a long while, she felt hopeful. The following months brought a new sense of rhythm to Samantha and Tom's relationship. They took their time, building their connection one step at a time, learning from the past, but not allowing it to dictate their future. Samantha was still cautious, but she couldn't deny the progress they were making. The friendship they had rebuilt was now a foundation, solid and steady, but with room for something more to grow. They spent weekends together, exploring new places, having dinner with friends, and sharing stories about their lives. Samantha began to realize that she had missed Tom in ways she hadn't fully understood before. It wasn't just about their past relationship. It was the way he made her laugh, the way they could be completely at ease with each other. But as their bond deepened, so did the complexities. Was this the beginning of something truly new, or were they simply revisiting old wounds? One evening, as they sat in a small bistro, Tom took a deep breath and looked at Samantha. "I've been thinking about our future," he said, his voice full of sincerity. "I know we're taking things slow, but I can see a life with you, Sam. I can see us building something beautiful together." Samantha felt a flutter in her chest at his words, but she remained guarded. "I can see that too, Tom, but we need to be sure. We've been through so much already, and I don't want to rush into anything. I need to know that we're both ready." Tom nodded, his eyes filled with understanding. "I know, and I don't want to rush you. I just want you to know that I'm here, and I'm willing to take it slow. I want us to be happy, whether that's together or apart." Samantha smiled softly, her heart swelling with emotion. "I think we're ready for this. I think we can make it work. But we need to take things one day at a time." As they left the bistro, hand in hand, Samantha felt a sense of calm wash over her. She wasn't sure what the future held, but for the first time, she felt like they were on the right path. Their relationship was no longer weighed down by the past. They had learned from it, and now they were moving forward with a fresh perspective. That night, as she lay in bed, Samantha reflected on everything that had happened. She had been so afraid to love again, so afraid of the pain that might come with reopening her heart. But now, she understood that love wasn't about perfection. It was about growth, understanding, and the willingness to embrace the unknown together. And with Tom, she was ready to take that leap of faith. As the seasons changed, so did Samantha and Tom's relationship. What had begun as a fragile friendship blossomed into something deeper and more meaningful. They no longer felt the weight of their past, but instead they focused on the present and the future. They were building together. Their connection was no longer about trying to fix what was broken, but about creating something new from the ground up. One evening, as they walked through a park, the sun setting in the distance, Tom turned to Samantha with a serious expression. "Sam, I've been thinking about us a lot lately," he said, his voice filled with emotion. "I know we've been taking things slow, but I want to know if you see a future with me." Samantha stopped in her tracks, her heart racing. She had known for some time that this moment was coming, but hearing him say it out loud brought everything into sharp focus. "I do see a future with you, Tom," she replied, her voice steady. "I've never been more sure of anything in my life." Tom's face broke into a smile, and he took her hand in his. "I want to build that future with you, Sam. I want to spend the rest of my life showing you how much you mean to me." As they stood together in the fading light of the evening, the world around them seemed to fall away. For the first time in a long time, Samantha felt truly at peace. She had come through the storm, weathered the pain of the past. And now she was ready to embrace the future with Tom by her side. She knew they could face anything, and as the sun set behind them, casting a golden glow over the park, Samantha knew that this was just the beginning of a beautiful journey. One they would take together, hand in hand, as the seasons changed. So did Samantha and Tom's relationship. What had begun as a fragile friendship blossomed into something deeper and more meaningful. They no longer felt the weight of their past, but instead, they focused on the present and the future. They were building together. Their connection was no longer about trying to fix what was broken, but about creating something new from the ground up. One evening, as they walked through a park, the sun setting in the distance, Tom turned to Samantha with a serious expression. "Sam, I've been thinking about us a lot lately," he said, his voice filled with emotion. "I know we've been taking things slow, but I want to know if you see a future with me." Samantha stopped in her tracks, her heart racing. She had known for some time that this moment was coming. But hearing him say it out loud brought everything into sharp focus. "I do see a future with you, Tom," she replied, her voice steady. "I've never been more sure of anything in my life." Tom's face broke into a smile, and he took her hand in his. "I wanted to build that future with you, Sam. I wanted to spend the rest of my life showing you how much you mean to me." As they stood together in the fading light of the evening, the world around them seemed to fall away. For the first time in a long time, Samantha felt truly at peace. She had come through the storm, weathered the pain of the past, and now she was ready to embrace the future with Tom by her side. She knew they could face anything, and as the sun set behind them, casting a golden glow over the park, Samantha knew that this was just the beginning of a beautiful journey, one they would take together, hand in hand. Conclusion: Samantha's journey from heartbreak to rediscovery wasn't easy. She had to confront her fears, revisit all the wounds, and come to terms with the complexities of love. But through it all, she learned that true healing comes from within, and that it's okay to open your heart again, even after it's been broken. With Tom, Samantha found not only a second chance at love, but also a renewed sense of self. They both grew from their past mistakes, but it wasn't their mistakes that defined them. It was their willingness to grow, to change, and to take risks that shaped their future together. In the end, Samantha realized that love is not about perfection, but about understanding, patience, and trust. With these things in place, anything was possible. Their journey was far from over, but now they were ready to face it together, stronger, wiser, and more in love than ever before.